Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Recently I was lucky enough to receive a haul of fantastic review products from the good people at Goblin King Games, makers of one of my favourite games, Moonstone. I have already unboxed and reviewed the new Death and Taxes box, and today we are going to be looking at the Rune Fated. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, those aren't goblins. You're not wrong, they're gnomes. If you've been following my Moonstone content, you will know that I like the Dominion faction, and for the most part I have been focusing on collecting goblins and anything that would ally well with them. That ain't gnomes. But here's the thing with Moonstone. Everything is bloody lovely, and every faction wants to entice you in its own unique way. From the foppish Baron Munchausen style humans and the witches straight out of Macbeth, to the toothy monstrosities that form the ranks of the fairies and the sinister cultists of the Leshyvault. It's only a matter of time until something from one of the factions catches your eye and risks luring you down a different path into collecting a brand new troupe. I do think when you first start out in the game it's a good idea to try to focus on building one faction first, but it's not easy. When I first got into the game, I stated that the gnomes were my least favourite faction. It wasn't that I didn't like them, I just liked everything else more. But then came the Rune Fated box, and that changed things. It's a set of Norse gnomes for the Commonwealth faction. And one of them is in a cart being pulled by the best boy ever. I thought Goblin King Games had already hit a high point with goblins riding pugs, wheelbarrows and lobsters. Then they do this. Now I'm interested in the gnomes. I am a sucker for dogs. If we open the box, you can see we have our 3 unit cards and our packing foam. The miniatures are always packed really well. Fingers crossed I am yet to have anything broken out of the packaging. And first up is Liv, a Norse cleric, and the cutest old crone you'll ever meet. She's in 4 parts: the main body, her arms, one of which is holding a plate of runes, and then her little owl friend. There's quite a lot of flash on this one, but this feathery flash does tend to brush off easily when you give the miniatures a quick wash and a scrub. And here she is assembled. Absolutely lovely detail. She has this long plaited hair that goes all the way down her back to her feet, and her pose is wonderful as she casts the runes. Her layers of fur clothing are nicely detailed without being fussy too. In terms of the build, she went together relatively easily. It's easy to position the right arm because there is a groove behind the ear to make sure it's placed correctly. The left arm with the plate is harder to get right, but not too bad. If we look at her character card, we can see that Liv has the keywords Gnome, Norse and Cleric. She's melee 2 with a range of 1, but that's to be expected. You don't bring along the old clan crone to get into a bit of fisticuffs with the local ruffians. You bring Liv for her arcane powers. You can see she is arcane 4, which is really good, and she has an evade of 0. She has 8 wounds and will get 3 energy per turn as standard. Liv's real speciality is tinkering with the runes. When she activates, she automatically triggers her reading the runes ability. You are allowed to guess a card, either selecting a number from one of the 3 coloured suits or else selecting a catastrophe. You then flip the top arcane card. If the card matches your guess, you trigger an effect based on that card. If the card is green, you can choose a friendly Norse model within 8 inches to gain the protection ability, which negates the first damage the target receives this turn. If the card is blue, you can choose a model within 8 inches to heal X plus 1 wounds, where X is the number on the card. If the card is red, you can choose a model within 8 inches to suffer X magical damage, where X is the number on the card. Finally, if the card is a catastrophe, all models within 2 inches suffer 2 magical damage. And I think this is such a clever and interesting ability. Unless you have some way to manipulate the deck immediately before Liv activates, you are playing a guessing game, but there's more to it than picking a card at random. The way the arcane deck is constructed, each coloured suit has 6 cards in it, 3 1s, 2 2s and 1 3, and then there are 3 catastrophes. That means when you're guessing a card, you can increase your odds of being successful by selecting a card with a value of 1. There are 3 of those in the deck. But while that does increase your chances of success, it also means the effect you generate will be less powerful. You will heal less wounds or cause less damage. That being the case, you could choose to go all out and select a coloured card with a value of 3. There will only be one of those cards in the deck, dramatically reducing your chances of success. But if this is your Hail Mary play, if the clock is ticking and you are on the back foot, maybe, just maybe, fate will smile on you. But that's assuming you have to guess at all. And really, who wants to let their fate be determined by random chance? There are plenty of sneaky ways to stack the deck in your favour. Olim, for example, another character in this set, has the ability to look at and arrange the top 3 cards of the arcane deck. If he does that before Liv activates, and assuming their opponent doesn't use an arcane ability in the meantime, Liv will know exactly which card to select. I just think it's a really fun and thematic skill, and struggling to stack the deck while preventing your opponent from doing anything to disrupt your plans is a lovely representation of Liv's attempts to bind fate to her own will. She also has the once per turn ability Manipulate the Runes. After resolving an arcane ability she initiated, you are allowed to set aside cards from your hand that you didn't play. You then shuffle the arcane deck and can put as many of the set aside cards as you wish on the top of the deck, putting the rest on the bottom. This lets Liv stack the deck in her favour. Unfortunately, she can't do this prior to using her Reading the Runes skill, which triggers as soon as she activates, but Manipulate the Runes does work very well with her arcane ability Runes of Power. This costs 1 energy and can target a model within 8 inches. If she uses a blue card, the ability restores wounds equal to the number on the card. If she uses a red card, the ability causes magical damage to the target equal to the number on the card minus 1. On a catastrophe, Liv suffers 2 wounds. The great thing about this ability is it only costs 1 energy, which means Liv can probably use it multiple times per turn, and that means after using it for the first time, she will be able to trigger her Manipulate the Runes ability, helping to ensure success when she uses Runes of Power a second time. It's a really lovely set of abilities, and with the exception of Runes of Power, her abilities don't even cost any energy to use. However, they are tricksy skills that require a degree of finesse to use consistently, and to a certain degree you will need to build your troupe around deck manipulation skills to help Liv out. It's almost like she doesn't have a great deal of skill reading the runes at all, it's just that everyone around her bends over backwards to make her readings a reality. Anyway, her signature move is the Rune Shield. Liv obviously shouldn't be getting into scraps, and it makes sense that her signature move is defensive. It won't cause any damage, but it does reduce the incoming damage by 2. Our second character is Olim, who is riding a cart pulled by a dog. This is the most complex miniature in the set. It's much more of a kit and comprises 3 frames. The first 2 frames have all the components for the dog and the cart. Just look at that happy doggo face. He is living his best life. The third frame has the components for Olim himself. He's cute as a button. And here's the miniature assembled. It is superb. It has so much animation. You really get a sense for how the dog is moving and the speed which has led to the cart almost overturning and some of the bottles spilling. Olim is desperately holding on but laughing gleefully. These two are just the happiest fighters on the field and no mistake. In terms of assembly, the parts were keyed well and fitted neatly. It's not quite clear where you should position Olim on the dog's back, but other than that, it's a very nicely constructed kit. Olim gives the appearance of someone charging into battle, but as a young gnomish noble, he actually has more of a supporting role and relies on other people to get stuck into the fighting for him. He has a melee stat of 3 with a 1-inch range, arcane 4, evade 0, and 7 wounds with 3 energy per turn as standard. Olim has some excellent passive abilities. The first is Valhalla, which triggers when a nearby Norse or Young Jack character starts a jog action. Young Jack is another gnome, and while he lacks the Norse keyword, he is a noble and is in some way related to Olim. I'm pretty sure Jack is Olim's father, but he may be just an older brother. Regardless, that synergy is there between the 2 characters. In fact, many of Olim's abilities are twists on abilities Young Jack possesses. When Valhalla triggers, the jogging character gains 2 inches of movement as long as they end up engaged with an enemy. Stick Olim in the centre of your line of melee warriors and watch them all surge forwards. Olim also has the Look of Innocence, which is an excellent defensive ability that will help to ensure he stays in the fight even when he is in the thick of the action. Whenever he is targeted by an action, the originator of the action must spend an energy or the action is completely cancelled. Olim's only active ability is Fortunate, which I've already mentioned and is a weaker version of Young Jack's Lucky. It costs 1 energy and allows Olim to look at the top 3 arcane cards and then put them back in any order. He can do this before using his own arcane abilities, but I would say that if you are running the full Rune Fated troupe, Fortunate is put to better use rigging the deck for Liv to read the runes. Olim's arcane ability is Buttermilk Elixir, which costs 2 energy and has a range of 6 inches. If you use a blue card, a target restores X plus 1 wounds, where X is the value of the card. If you use a red card, a target Norse or Gnome gains plus 1 energy. On a catastrophe, Olim suffers 3 wounds. His signature move is Fetch, which does no damage but has a powerful ability that sees Olim calling for aid. In the end step, you can select a friendly Norse or young Jack within 4 inches to move up to 3 inches towards the enemy. If they engage the enemy, Olim is allowed to immediately move 3 inches away. This makes him perfect for hit and run tactics when supported by tougher allies. Our third and final character is Bjorn. He comes on a single frame in 3 pieces and he is just lovely. I really like the details and I get a bit of an Asterix vibe off him. Just look at his impressive facial hair, and the detailing on the axe heads is very nice. I think the sculpts for Moonstone are fantastic. They are detailed and crisp, but not over fiddly. They are usually pretty easy to put together and paint, and they have a lovely cartoonish aesthetic. Almost every one is an absolute winner, and this one is particularly nice. He's got his Horn of Plenty overflowing with ale or mead, and he is about to make a compelling argument with that axe. Lovely dynamic posing, excellent flow through the miniature, and loads of character. I wanted the Rune Fated set because of Olim and the dog, but I think Bjorn could be my favourite miniature of the 3. This was also the easiest build of the 3. Everything was keyed really well, and it was obvious how it all fitted together. Looking at his card, Bjorn seems to live by the creed of there is no fate but what you make yourself. He is a frontline fighter through and through, and everything he does is geared around causing maximum damage and probably dying a glorious death. He is melee 4 with a range of 1, but only arcane 2 with evade 0. He has 8 wounds and gets 3 energy as standard. One of the things I don't normally talk about is that the position of the blue dots on a character's health bar that indicate how much energy they get is very important. Some characters will have blue dots high on their health bar. That means they only have to take a few wounds before they start to lose combat effectiveness. Other characters have blue dots low on their health bar, and that means even after picking up a lot of wounds, they are still going to get all of their energy every turn. This is true of Bjorn, who has to drop to just 2 wounds before he starts to lose energy, and this is important because of his aggressive, reckless playstyle. Being a frontline fighter, he needs some armour, so he has the passive ability Bearskin, which reduces non-piercing damage by 1. But he cares much more about dealing damage than blocking it, as proven by the Berserk Fury passive ability that increases all of his melee damage by half the number of wounds he has received, rounding up. That could be as much as 4 extra damage per hit when he is on the brink of death. And he can ensure he gets those big modifiers with a cry of Skoll as he chugs his mead. When he activates, he can choose to flip an arcane card, suffering X wounds where X is the value of the card. This can quickly work him into a frenzy, but at the risk of him overindulging and facing an early bath. Additionally, if he draws a catastrophe card, all his wounds are healed and he loses his Berserk Fury ability until the end of the round. I think this is such a cool thematic set of abilities. A character that drinks himself into a frenzy, pushing himself to the limits and placing himself in harm's way just to smash whatever he can get his hands on is going to be a lot of fun to play. And we aren't done yet because Bjorn gets an active ability, Bear Charge. It costs 1 energy and lets Bjorn select an enemy within 4 inches. Bjorn moves 3 inches directly towards them, and the target is so terrified they cannot use their signature move until the end of Bjorn's activation. Bjorn does need to be up close to cause the most carnage, but he does get a throwing axe as well. This arcane ability costs 2 energy to activate and has a range of 4 inches. If he plays a green card, the target suffers 2 times X impact damage, where X is the value of the card. On a catastrophe, Bjorn suffers 3 wounds, which is just going to make him even angrier. His signature move is Thrash. There's a lot going on with this move, so let's break it down. First, it inflicts 0 damage, but that 0 damage is modifiable, so as long as Bjorn is angry, he's still going to do damage. Second, this move has 3 yellow dots. That means Bjorn has a good chance of making a follow-up attack, playing another card that could potentially do massive damage. Finally, there is an end step ability that lets Bjorn move 2 inches towards the enemy. This isn't necessarily important if he was the one who initiated the combat, he will already be within 1 inch. But it's vital for if he has been attacked by someone like Doug the Flatulent, who has been poking at Bjorn with his lance from a considerable range. Poke the bear too much, and he's coming for you. Overall, I think it's another really nice set of miniatures, and the characters are all unique and interesting. There's quite a lot to think about with them though. They have a lot of skills that require careful planning and good synergies. They might not be a great starter force, or a force for younger players, who might want something a little more straightforward, with abilities that are a little easier to use to their maximum potential. If you do want to pick up this pack, the recommended retail price is £32, which I think is pretty reasonable for 3 really nice miniatures that are going to add a lot to your team building options, especially as one of the miniatures is a larger mounted unit. But that's about all I have to say. I will be gradually painting these up and posting images on my Instagram page, and I am sure they will be appearing in some more videos down the line as well. Until then, thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.